Hello, everyone. How y'all doing, man? Listen, I think that the most challenging thing about all of this is finding something new that social media has not said yet. That's going to be the hardest part of all of this. You know what I'm saying? Um, I posted something on my Facebook the other day that kind of went into the ins and outs of what this forgiveness thing actually adds up to for Black folks. But what seems to be the challenge is what to do now. How do we move forward? And this is something that we have to grapple with as a people. I seen a video that said, "What's the cost of not being on code and whatnot?" That's real, man. The power dynamics become so clear when we talk about who is expected to apologize for what, to apologize for existing, to apologize for dying, to apologize for not being uh, in the right place at the right time. You see what I'm saying? I think that we, as people who have experienced what we've experienced, have to look at things in terms of setting our price. You have to set your price. Set your price in terms of what will you allow and what will you not allow. Setting your price is very, very important because it's about power. It's about negotiation. It's about bartering what you will experience in the future versus how you react to a tragic situation now. That's what seems to be the most important thing. Forgiveness, and then what? What happens after we forgive? I told my sister, I was like, because my sister's a good Christian woman, but I said, listen, man, if something were to happen to me, God forbid, if you got to forgive them folks, do it in the privacy of your own home and within the sanctity of your heart. That's between you and your Lord and Savior. Do not put it out there. I said that it's a kind of cheap grace. It is a display, right? It's a private thing. When you have to actually get into the place where you got to forgive somebody, there's a wisdom of forgiving somebody and then letting it go off your heart, not burdening yourself. With that being said, when you begin to kind of like put it out there for the world to see, it's one of those things where I gotta say it can be used as a symbolic pass of approval as a check. I feel like I made my last video too soon, and I shouldn't have made my last video at the time period that I did it because I didn't really understand how the rest of the chips were going to fall and how this situation was going to play out, yo. But it's a real thing when we as a people are expected to forgive, right? For example, when the buildings were taken down on 9/11, nobody was asking Americans to forgive Osama bin Laden, were they? When the Jews were released from the camps at Auschwitz, nobody was asking them to apologize. Nobody, right? Nor would they expect them to. I think what's so interesting is that we did a peace movement here in America. Our civil rights struggle had a lot to do with overcoming, turning the other cheek, embodying the most highfalutin Christian values that we possibly could, right? I think that's one of those things that we're kind of branded with the stigma of now. You know what I mean? Like when you do a peaceful, nonviolent movement that's based on Christian forgiveness, you have that standard to live up to. And I said to myself, look, man, the folks who were coming before us just had a kind of fortitude that I think that wasn't necessary. Well, that was necessary at the time, but that was superhuman. I know somebody who's related to somebody in the Little Rock Nine. You know what I mean? The Black children who were first integrating the high schools in what you call Little Rock, right? How anger was almost trained out of them folks. How rage and vengeance was basically eliminated from their neurological pathways. They can't do that no more. You know what I mean? What does it mean when that's the general expectation of everybody of your ilk and kin? So yeah, y'all talk to me. What's going on with y'all, man? I see y'all watching. But essentially, I'll just break it down the way I broke it down on Facebook for those of y'all who missed it. By the way, like, follow, and subscribe to this channel should you decide to do that. But here's what I'll say. What's interesting also about this whole forgiveness situation, right, is that the path forward implies that there is more of this to come, and this is the way to respond to it. Painful. I think one of the most interesting things that you could do is kind of flip the script. There's a lot of freak out in white America now about the changing demographics and about the deaths of despair and whatnot. You know, there's 63% of the population. Flip that on its head. White America, let me ask you something. What if you were only 13% of the population like us, hypothetically speaking? What if that was all that there was of you left in this land, right? And what if you were under the thumb of folks who had historically enslaved and oppressed you, lynched, burned, raped, the whole nine? What if you were in a situation in America where Louis Farrakhan was president? What if Farrakhan was president? What if Louis Farrakhan was president and all the cops were recruited from either Nation of Islam, Black Lives Matter, or the New Black Panthers? How would you feel? What if those Black establishment figures that I just mentioned were descendants of an ancient race of African men who conquered and colonized by the sword? Like, can you imagine if the Moors, if Mali had actually taken up the sword and conquered the whole world? Right? The stereotypes of Black men are bad enough when we just went through 2 decades of sagging and gangbanging in the 80s and 90s, right? That branded us, right? Up until now, right? Imagine if we were actually aggressively conquering the world. Blood, you know what I mean? Like forced religion. Like, what if everybody was forced into the Ifa religion? Across the world, what if Black men made entire races damn near go extinct? What if that was the reality that we lived in, right? And then you as a white American witnessed somebody innocent killed by a law enforcement officer. Would you hug us if that was your family member? Would that be the expectation? Would you hug us? Would you love us? Would you embrace us? Yeah, I think we know the answer to that question. So here's what we have to do. We have to figure out a way to grow a little bit of compassion in this political climate right now. And how do you grow compassion without centering the redemption of whiteness? How do you grow compassion without centering the redemption of whiteness? You see what I'm saying? I don't fault Botham's brother for what he did. He's still a very young man and is suffering from a lot of grief. White people are naturally more violent than Black people. I'm mad at the judge for hugging her. Yo, I'm mad at the judge. What are you doing, yo? What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Grief affects everybody differently. You never know. And I think that you're right, Ms. Espinosa. Botham's brother, it's hard to say what the brother is experiencing right now. What I find interesting is the coddling culturally of white women. You know what I mean? Like the way in which we are taught to be gentle, to make space for their fragility, to make allowance for their tears and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is that about? What's that about? Because it seems to leverage the preconceived idea of the chastity and sanctity and the inherent femininity of white women when we embrace them, when we cuddle them. And how could we not do it? I actually got compassion for Black people in this area. You've seen those doll tests, the baby doll test, where you sit a Black child down and you give the Black child the white baby doll and you give the Black child the Black baby doll. You get them both and you say which baby doll is good and which baby doll is bad. And the Black child will point to the Black baby doll and say, that's the bad one, right? Drip fed that since we were little. Every cartoon, every sitcom, every commercial. Freaking, by the time you're in elementary school, 70% of your teachers are white, right? You are taught to have a love for white women, even if you're a young man, you know what I'm saying? Likely if you're watching porn, Playboy Channel, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Playboy Channel, I guess, is still a thing. But it's mostly nude female bodies, even in porn. You see what I'm saying? Like, we have a deep, deep subconscious conditioning to make space and allowance for them, right? So I think that we as a people have to be aware of that. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be, I have no emotions for these terrorists. I don't forgive shit. Yo, I don't have any judgment for Black people who don't have the space to forgive. Why should you forgive? Like realistically, why should you forgive? Think about this, y'all. We're asked to forgive the unforgivable. Like, we're asked to take superhuman leaps of emotional intelligence and bandwidth. Given what we've experienced in terms of trauma, for example, I said this before. What if you don't have forgiveness in you? What if the urge within you is vengeance? What if vengeance takes over? Like, what if like the word of your life is like justice, balancing the scales, right? What if that's where you at right now? You would most likely be shamed by those who are part of the Christian conglomerate of our community. And I started analyzing vengeance because I had a need for vengeance. Like I remember, when I would see these Black lives getting taken, the warrior in me would be like, motherfucker, if you do that to my brother, if y'all come for me like that, it's gonna be on. I'll pop every last one of you. Like that's what happens inside of me. You know what I'm saying? What about vengeance? Vengeance is simply a part of the compassion continuum, right? I see you, Casey. Let me address you, Casey, and I'm gonna talk to Miss Espinosa, right? KC, you know what I mean? When somebody actually effectively gets revenge, when somebody actually effectively balances the scales, what's the first thing they say? Now you know how it feels. Now you know how it feels. It is my theory that vengeance, the need to even the score and balance the scales and get revenge, is a part of evolutionary failsafe when people lack compassion. See what I'm saying? Because if you had compassion, you wouldn't do the shit that make people want to get revenge on you. Does that make sense? Like, I look at God in terms of the entire spectrum. See, most people be like, God is good. I saw this comic book movie where the villain said either God is all good or God is all powerful, but he cannot be both. Either God is all good or God is all powerful, but he cannot be both. That means to me that all the force in the universe, not just the positive force, all the creatures of creation, not just the bunny rabbits and the bumblebees and the butterflies and shit, but like the scorpions. This is the God that created the velociraptor. This is the God that created the shark. You know what I'm saying? The God that created the cobra, the God that created the wolf pack. You know what I'm saying? That's also an expression of this creator. And so when you look at divinity, divinity has these really hardcore fail safes, and vengeance might be one of them. Vengeance might be one of them. You know what I'm saying? You look at evolutionary history of human beings, there's cave drawings. If there was a bully in the tribe back in the day, if there was somebody who didn't have compassion, there was somebody who tried to dominate by force, there's cave drawings of motherfuckers getting 10 arrows in the back from 10 tribes when they got their bows on them like that, right? We are the descendants of people who could collaborate, and collaboration implies compassion. If you create systems that have no compassion, do not be surprised when people want to get revenge. Don't be surprised when the urge to balance the scale shows up. That's just what happens. That's natural cause and effect. So no, I don't shame my folks who actually want vengeance. Vengeance is the response to injustice, to balance the scales, to create compassion in those who don't have it. That urge is natural. I feel it. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching this pro-choice movie where there is good, just to see how I could understand what side. The good Christian woman was white, the girl's getting an abortion was black. Oh Lord, hold up. Did you say the girl getting an abortion was black? Oh Lord. Yo. Whew. It's so funny how conservatives care about black bodies when they're in the womb and don't give a shit about them once they are born. That's what I'll say, Miss Espinosa. For example, white conservatives put out the movie Ma'afa 21. Ma'afa 21 was this crazily, like, you know what I'm saying, like tight. Appreciate that, my friend. I'm just trying to make sure that the truth gets clear. Ma'afa 21 was a breakdown. And see, this is how this relates to this Botham Jean situation. She ends up getting decides to keep it. Holy shit, that's crazy. That's crazy. Raped by 3 black men. Okay, so let's talk about abortions and conservatives and the black body and how it relates to the death of Botham Jean real fast. By the way, I'm Theo Wilson. Like, follow, share this message, anything that you need, right? But let's take a look at this because there's so much care for black women when they're pregnant. Don't abort the baby, you know what I'm saying? But what if that baby actually gets born and grows up to be Botham Jean? That baby's actually a productive member of society. Or what if that baby's not fortunate enough to be Botham Jean? What if that baby ends up thugging? What if that baby ends up pushing, you know what I'm saying, dope in the community due to structural violence and resource deprivation via systemic racism and the toll that has been paid by our ancestors? What if that's the life that that black body gets? Conservatives suddenly don't care anymore, right? Conservatives are suddenly like, man, calling the National Guard, bring in the police force, arrest these super predator young men. You see what I'm saying? That to me is the major hypocrisy of that. The Christian ideology that involves being pro-life and pro-forgiveness certainly is selective, right? Because these same Christian folks wouldn't be listening to George W. Bush if he was like, forgive Osama bin Laden after 9/11. I know them Christian folks won't be listening to none of that shit. They'd be like, listen, man, fuck that turn the other cheek shit. Like, if you ask me, if this was truly a Christian nation, if we were truly about, if white America specifically was truly about turning the other cheek, I promise you, on 9/11, they had the perfect opportunity. Turn the other cheek to bin Laden then, right? Since you want black folks to forgive every time that we are slighted, go ahead and practice what you preach. Go ahead and turn the other cheek, during World War II. Turn the other cheek to Japan during Pearl Harbor. Turn the other cheek, right? Forgive. Christian nation, since that's who you are. You don't do that. No. It is full-on warfare when you lose members of your tribe, white America. So when we lose members of our tribe, any pressure to ask us to forgive, knowing that the white American tribe takes vengeance all out. Like, I did the numbers. If you look at the number of Americans that died in Pearl Harbor, right? It was about mid 2000s, about 2,500, 2,400 Americans died in Pearl Harbor. You know what I'm saying? That between that and 3,000 versus how many Japanese that America killed with the nuclear bombs. We're looking at 200,000 at least. It was like a 94 times return on the death ratio that America's willing to give, that white America's willing to give when they lose their own, right? If you look at 3,000 Americans dying in 9/11 versus the 1.5 million Iraqis that died, you see how America really plays forgiveness. They don't play it. They don't play it. But the powerful tribe is the one that gets to exact vengeance. You see what I'm saying? I said this before, but sometimes it's just an issue of returning eye for eye or even a head for eye. It is against Christian morality, yet it is a lot of times what keeps tribes free. It's what keeps people free. The ability to express the natural tendency towards vengeance when an innocent life of your own folks is taken is not to be shamed. It's a part of human nature. It's just who we've been. If somebody from the past, way distant past, like caveman days, was to take a time machine forward, they'd be like, oh, y'all waited for the justice system. Well, why don't you just kill that person? You know what I'm saying? They were much closer to life and death. They grew their food, hunted it, skinned it, gutted it. You see what I'm saying? Like, who human beings naturally are is much closer to our more primal nature. You know what I mean? So I don't shame folks who want that done. Let's see, because Muslims are the bad guys and Christians never do anything wrong. I know you mean that in quotes, Miss Espinosa, right? Look, the hypocrisy is so clear that the hypocrisy becomes clearer by the day. You see what I'm saying? The hypocrisy is one of those things that becomes even more bitter as time goes on. The problem with America is not necessarily ideologically, we're talking about big picture here, that it had slaves. Rome had slaves. The problem is that it pretended that it was the land of the free. That's the problem, right? If Rome was America, like if America was Rome, Rome wouldn't hide the bodies. They'd be like, yeah, this is how many Indians we killed. This is exactly who we are. You see what I'm saying? I would say that America is Rome pretending to be Greece with the culture of Babylon. You know what I mean? We see the hypocrisies. Black America sees this shit. You know what I mean? We see them what we're asked to do. Like, you can also tell which bodies are protected and which bodies are not protected by which group of people is asked to forgive what. You can always tell. You know what I mean? By whose fault we try to make it. You can always tell who's in a protected class and who's not. Amber Guyger got 10 years. This is her first offense. She probably is going to get good behavior, which means that she could be out in 5. She could, under certain circumstances, she gets into the right program, she could make parole in 2. Like, literally, Amber Guyger could be out of prison before we get 2 more presidents. Like, before we get, like, she could literally hypothetically be out of prison 1 president later. How long was Botham Jean alive? Botham Jean was like 27, 28? How many presidents is that? Right? At least 4, 5, right? 4, at least. You know what I mean? So yeah. You see, Botham. Okay, so he was 26. Thanks, Mr. Espinosa. These devils still haven't forgave Haiti for the revolution. Yo, they still haven't forgiven Haiti for the revolution. Indeed, they haven't. Or else the embargoes and the trade restrictions would be released against Haiti. No, no. And not only that, but when Haiti experienced this earthquake in 2010, it was the Clinton Foundation that came up and sucked up all the aid. I mean, if you look at what they built in Haiti, it was only for those who were from the Western nations that wanted to kind of be there and look like they were doing good shit. After that, they took away all that aid, yo. It's real. It's absolutely real talk. So yeah, it's interesting because when you flip it, and sometimes you can't even see the global quarantine that Black folks are under until you flip the game, right? If you imagine, what do you think about happening? OJ Charles versus got his birthday, Lord today. Everybody can be out of prison before 10 more unarmed. Damn, real shit. Damn, that's real. I mean, I'll say this. You can often only see the situation when you flip it on its head. I can't imagine if Africa had a trade domination over the globe, right? And imagine white people living in a situation where they were forced to forgive yet another murder. Like you almost can't even see your situation until you turn it up, and it's the shit that affects you. You see what I'm saying? Like I said, what if Oxford and Cambridge were decimated and destroyed and laid waste to like the great city of Benin? You know what I'm saying? What if African people came and knocked over Big Ben and the Eiffel Tower? What would that look like? How would they react? And sometimes you can't say like what if an African nation came and knocked over the Washington Monument and destroyed the Smithsonian? What if that was the case, right? Like, how would they react to that shit? And what if there was nothing they could fucking do about it, right? What if Mount Rushmore was all chipped down? All them presidents taken off of that land, right? They can't imagine. And then you realize that, damn, I'm kind of attached to these monuments too, because I'm still raised in this system. You see what I'm saying? Well, that's what happened to the great empires of West Africa. You feel me? Like reduced to like legend and rubble, you know? And then colonized and then resource snatched. It's the wildest thing. Amber Guyger came out of prison before. So what do you think about the OJ anniversary? Yo, I ain't sweating OJ Simpson right now, yo. I ain't sweating OJ Simpson. I ain't got nothing to say about no juice right now. For real, for real. Notre Dame was burning. All these people feeling nope. I didn't feel nothing. I remember when Notre Dame was burning and all these white folks was in their feelings. Nope, I didn't feel anything. Listen. Neither did I. Neither did I. I mean, when people start breaking down, like, yeah, that's 800 years of history. I'm like, yeah. How much history was in the Library of Alexandria in Kemet, though? Like, that was the entire knowledge of the ancient world burned to the ground. You see what I'm saying? I got to be honest, I didn't feel anything. Neither did I. You know what I mean? Like, well, 38 months before, 36 to 48 months before she's released, Blue Lives Matters types will assure that she returns to comfort or probably get a book deal for her trials and tribulations. Y'all spitting facts today. I don't know. Y'all spitting facts today. Straight up. Can you imagine the Amber Guyger bestseller on the New York Times list for 14 weeks in a row or some shit? That's on its way. See what I mean? Like, that's real shit. And what are we going to do? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do? So we forgive, and now what? And now what? What is the price that you set? What is the price that you set? Sometimes I ask myself, what is the universe teaching Black people through white supremacy? What is the universe teaching Black people through the trials and tribulations of white supremacy? You see what I'm saying? Like, that is, I think, the most important question. I try to look at the forces behind the hand. Like, I try to look through it, not just look at it. What are we trying to be taught? Who are we being asked to be? You see what I'm saying? When we experience the kind of degradation that we've experienced. That's the question. That's the what's next after forgiveness. Let's say you got to forgive somebody. Let's say hypothetically, you got to forgive so that you can unburden your heart and try to live your best life with the rest of the limited amount of days that you got. But what's next? Right? Well, I'll tell you what's next. Wise and free people plan to eliminate these experiences from the lives of their children. That's what they do. Wise and free people try to make sure that their kids don't go through shit like this. How do you make sure that that is something that your children avoid? That's the question. That's what we have to ask ourselves. That's what needs to be overcome. Let's see. What if one could sue the police for compensating? Yeah, with their own pension funds. Yo, Denise, I've been said that. Like, yo, why is it that taxpayer dollars are the ones paying the settlements for unlawful killings of folks? How come police ain't paying that shit out of their pension? I bet it would make them way more accountable if they knew that they slip up. That's going to mess up everybody's retirement fund. Like, why should we fund? Like the taxpayers, like, why should we fund the actual, like, basically we're funding the payout. We're funding the killing of our own children. Why should we do that? See what I'm saying? That is a great question. It's like the lady killed Terrence Crutcher is also out teaching other cops how to survive a media scandal. Now that I did not know. What's her name? Her name was Betty something. The lady that killed Terrence Crutcher is out teaching other cops how to survive a media scandal. Oh no. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Shit like this. Sometimes folks in my circle be a little like overly woke hotepian a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'll be like, yo, y'all over here doing way, way, way too much. But then I start to realize that we need an immune system. Let's say, you got somebody that's overly woke off the chain. They doing way too much for you. That's a personal preference. But who are we being asked to become? What is this shit teaching us about the nature of power? What are these experiences actually teaching us about the nature of power? That's what I want to hear. Did she apologize to the family yet? I don't know. Mr. Ashe. I don't know. Did she apologize to the family yet? I mean, I highly doubt it, but I'm sure that would have made news. See what I'm saying? But yeah, what are we learning here about the nature of power? You see, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing talked about how us as a people are very adept at problem perception, not necessarily that adept at problem solution. It's about solving these problems for our children. What are we learning about power? What have we learned through this experience, right? That power can like literally perpetually get away with just taking your folks for granted. Power can perpetually get away with ending lives, the people that you love. That's what power could possibly do, right? So what are we going to do about what we've learned about power? You know? I sometimes think that Black folks, we're so, what you call, sensitive about repaying the crime of racism. We're so sensitive about repaying the crime of racism that we don't take necessarily defense moves because we convince ourselves that we're on the same moral level for defending ourselves. Think about that, right? If somebody's raping a woman and he's violently raping her, what if she had a hesitation for fighting back with violence because she knows violence overall is wrong? After all, it was a part of her rape. See what I'm saying? I think that's a psychological condition that we are in right now. Like, what are we learning about the nature of power? And how will we apply these lessons that we've learned? Because here's what it's looking like. Somebody can kidnap you, put you on a boat, bring you over, exploit you for as long as possible, then put you in a system where you are economically castrated and emasculated, systemically denied resources in an empire that your forefathers' labor and sweat built, and then they can take it more advantage of you, relegate you to ghettos. Then when you get angry about it, start killing your own brothers and sisters and create a prison industrial complex around it. Like, that's what we're learning about the nature of power, right? It's a sad and rough lesson. But that's what it's teaching us. Can you get mad at us for learning? I don't think you can. Betty Shelby's teaching surviving the aftermath. Like Terrence Crutcher's life was nothing, and she was the real victim. That's what power does. That's what power can do. That's what power can do. It can literally flip the script and say, since even though I pulled the trigger, my life was destroyed. And since you ain't here to say shit about it, since you ain't here to write your own book, since you ain't here to teach your own seminar, then that's just what it's going to be. That's what power is teaching us. Who do we have to become to prevent that from happening to another generation? Thank you, Miss Espinosa. That's real shit, right? Power is teaching us that it can take unlimited everything from you if you do not act to stop it. See what I'm saying? So, what are we going to do with these lessons, y'all? Because forgiveness, it clearly doesn't stop it from happening again. You know, it clearly doesn't stop it from actually repeating in our experience, nor will it stop our children from experiencing that. These are the questions we got to ask ourselves, y'all. And if we don't ask ourselves the right questions and we don't get the right answers, we are dooming our children to experience this shit. And that kind of makes us bad parents, if you think about it. Like, if you know that this landscape is oppressive and fucked up and you raise your children in it anyway, whatever happens to them is kind of on your head. That's raw shit. One of my mentors, his name's Carl, he taught me about this concept called right thinking. Right thinking. Clear thinking. How do you think through this shit clearly, right? It's like the thinking of a mathematician, a strategist, or an architect, a physicist, a scientist, except they look at social situations. How do you look at it with such a clear eye that you can simply see what's going on unemotionally? These are the ways and methodologies that we have to start looking at the experiences that we're going through the scientific method. Like, we've got to become scientists about that shit. You know what I'm saying? As long as we're emotional, we stay reactive about shit like this. And we don't actually get to the point where we're actually dissecting it and actually ruthlessly looking at what's actually going on. The question is, after you've forgiven, what's next on the plate for you and those coming after you? What is the nature of power? What are we being taught through this experience? More than white supremacy and all this shit, because nothing actually happens outside of universal law. What is the universe teaching us about power? Right? We, the people who never asked to be black. You know, before 1619 or 1492, we weren't black. We were Yoruba, and Hausa, and Igbo, and Mende, and Akan, and Mandinka, and Wolof. We were all of these things, right? But we weren't necessarily black. Somebody with power came and made us black. That's the truth, right? So now you've been made black. What now? What now? See what I'm saying? We need to detox every place on earth where Christianity was spread. Yo, how do you detox a place from Christianity? How do you detox it? You see what I'm saying? That's a real question. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'll push back on that. Marcus Garvey was a Christian. He's the cat who set all this shit in motion. You know what I mean? Like, it was Marcus Garvey set all this shit in motion, you know? So, you know, and he had problems. The brother was very, very dysfunctional in many, many ways, severely. But he was also a Christian, and he also set up the ripple effect that's caused all the Black liberation movements across the world. He set that shit in motion, right? He's a Christian. So is there a form of Christian that is conducive to Black liberation? Is there a form of it? You know what I mean? I think Garvey's existence and how he practiced his Christianity warrants that very question. It warrants it. But yeah, but in general, I see the need for the colonial imprint, including the imprint that was left by Christianity, to detox. He was a different type, not the same one as today. Well, I can definitely agree with you on that. He was a different type of Christian. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't necessarily your T.D. Jakes kind of Christian. He wasn't your Creflo Dollar kind of Christian. He wasn't, Joel Osteen kind of Christian. No, he wasn't. He was a different brand. But if you would have asked him who his Lord and Savior was, he'd have said Jesus Christ, and he'd have said, and he was a black man, he'd have said Jesus Christ was black, you know. So there's a way. There's a way. Because what happens is, and this is why I push back on that. I know a lot of Christian brothers and sisters who, when it comes to their ability and desire to act in a way that would get us free, they're more committed than a lot of y'all who's like, part of the EFA system or some Muslim cats, you know what I'm saying? I know a couple Christians who's about that life. So where's my effort more intelligently spent? Dislodging Christianity from them or directing their energies towards liberation. Malcolm X said, keep your religion in the closet. That's what Malcolm said. He said, you're not catching hell because you're Muslim. You're not catching hell because you're Baptist. You're catching hell because you're black. That's what Malcolm said. You know what I'm saying? So is there a way? And maybe us focusing on liberation and things like that will actually slowly dismantle the colonial imprint, including the imprint left by religion. That's one thing to ask. You know what I mean? But straight up, Garvey was a different type, for sure. For sure. Anyway, folks, how do we stop our children from being subject to this experience? That is the question. And your love for your children should be the motivation factor that you need to find a logical, rational, and applicable answer to that question. How do we stop them from experiencing the same degradation? That is the $1 million question, y'all. So yeah, just saying, yo, I'm Theo E.J. Wilson. Y'all go ahead and like, follow, share, hit that ding bell. I'm gonna start going live more often with the best of analysis that I can bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate y'all joining my channel. I'm about to end this little stream right now, but go ahead and share this out if you feel that the content was necessary. So thank you very much. It's obviously the verdict's impact on the black community's response to little. I wonder if Botham Jean's brother knows the fucking ripple effect that he just had. Can't be doing that shit. I say if you got forgive him in the privacy of your own heart. Do that. The rest of it, I'm not sure if that's the way to go. Just saying. Optics is kind of off the chain. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good day. Holla back, share this out if you wanted a discussion to continue. Peace, peace.